RFK Jr. When I first interviewed him, I was very skeptical. I'd heard a lot of stuff about him being a crazy conspiracy theorist and so on. I've interviewed him probably 4 or 5 times since then, and I didn't get the feeling I was with a madman. I got a feeling I was with a guy who's immersed himself into health issues for many decades, that he has some opinions which others don't like, but that broadly speaking, he comes from a good place of wanting to make America a healthier place. What's wrong with that?
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think,
Guys, this is Piers Morgan and his guest. Their takes on RFK's health and him taking control. Can MAGA trust him? What do you guys think? This was going to be interesting. Make sure you guys listen.
he is the picture of health himself. I mean, he's a roided up 70-year-old who doesn't believe in germ theory and eats roadkill. I think that is perfect. He sounds like he's speaking into a fan half the time, and he doesn't believe in vaccines. He wants to replace healthcare in this country with Ozempic. And he also wants to limit access to antidepressants and psychiatric meds for all Americans and replace it with things like meditation. If we think we have a mental health care crisis in this country now, just you wait until RFK Jr. is finished with this country. If you think there is some sort of drug epidemic, people are going to be buying Adderall on the black market in insane amounts. He also thinks that Jewish people and Chinese people can't get COVID. That was a fun one. You should tell that to my uncle. Oh, wait, he's dead. Also, 83 Samoans also dead from the anti-vax work that he did in American Samoa. Just as there's a measles outbreak in Texas right now because of the kind of lies about vaccines that he has spilled. But honestly, Piers, other than that, truly a picture of health.
Right, well, you certainly painted a rosy picture of the forthcoming health secretary. Deborah, let me ask you. I mean, look, you're a medical expert. You specialized in HIV, AIDS, immunology, vaccine research, global health. I remember you, obviously, center stage in the Trump COVID era. What do you make of RFK? I mean, do you think he's dangerous? Is he misguided in some areas? Is he broadly right? What's your overview of him?
Guys, comment in orange heart if you guys think if Trump made a good choice giving RFK Jr. to take on the health for the United States. What do you guys think?
Well, we're finally having the discussions that we needed to have, frank discussions about the health of this country. I got to travel the country for many months during COVID, working at the state level and the community level. And what I witnessed was a lot of undiagnosed disease that could have been treated early, that then resulted in COVID deaths. And I saw a health system that had completely deteriorated in our rural areas. Our rural areas really don't have access to healthcare anymore. And the hub and spoke model that we had set up to get really sick people into the regional medical centers, they were overwhelmed themselves. So COVID pointed out a lot of our issues with chronic disease. Like with early HIV, when we started, we were only treating those with symptoms. Well, that was the tip of the iceberg. When we finally started working and finding asymptomatic individuals and getting them on treatment early before they had evidence of disease, they could thrive. So what I'm hoping is this is a moment we work with Americans to reverse those early signs of disease and prevent the progression. And then we won't have frank diabetes and hypertension and stroke. We'll have a very different outcome. I see you shaking your head, but I actually have data. And so data, I think, trumps. I'm right now in West Texas, was out in West Texas for the last year, documenting the number of people who have asymptomatic early diabetes. 58% in this community, a rural community that was picked relatively at random, 58% of individuals already had pre-diabetic or diabetic states, and another 60% were already hypertensive. None of them knew they were. They were all in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. This is our moment where we can actually tackle the issues that everyone has been ignoring for more than 2 decades.
58%. Probably are diabetic, pre-diabetic. What do you guys think about that? Let that sink in, guys. 58%. That's a lot. That's a high number. I think Trump made a good choice. You're hearing it here on Piers Morgan Show.
But can I just ask the doctor? I mean, I'm surprised that you are a doctor. I believe in preventative
Damn.
medicine, and I think that RFK Jr. does a really good job of hiding the ball when he says things like chronic disease. I absolutely believe in that. The number one way to stop chronic disease is to have access to a doctor, to have regular checkups. 40 million people in Texas alone are uninsured, and a lot of them buy into some of the quack science that RFK Jr. is trotting out there, which is why if you were in West Texas, you should know that there is a massive amount of people who don't get vaccinations, and that's why we've got a measles outbreak right now. So in order to say, okay, you were the COVID, we know you're the COVID lady, right? I'm not trying to come down on you on that. I think you could have done a lot better of a job. You obviously were responsible for papering over Trump's worst wiles, like injecting bleach into, your system in addition to ivermectin. Please don't at me, all the ivermectin psychos. And, we know he liked you because you wore a pretty scarf and, you're nice to look at. And that's great. But you're also a doctor and you have a responsibility. So you have to tell the American people that it's the fact that they can't get access to affordable meds. They can't get access to a doctor without charging them an arm and a leg for basic things. If you need, let's say, a CT scan or an X-ray, right? If you have all kinds of just basic things, that you're not allowed to get that without being charged an arm and a leg. I've done work on this as a journalist. I've interviewed people who refused to go to the doctor because they cannot afford it. RFK Jr. does not believe in healthcare for all people. He says it's too expensive. Meanwhile, he wants to hawk everyone a bunch of supplements, and under his FDA, I'm sure a bunch of stuff is going to be approved of.
Okay, well, before I go to the other two guests who've not had a chance to contribute yet, I think it's only fair that, Deborah, you get to respond to that. So what would you say?
Let's hear it.
No, it's always disappointing to me when you have to degrade somebody to actually have a clear discussion. What I'm trying to be very clear on is there are people with insurance who are undiagnosed because they don't have time to go to the doctor because they're working 7 days a week. So we have to, in the medical community, adjust to people's needs.
Yep.
You can't do this
Let her
one
cook.
size fits all, that urban areas have access and a lot of rural areas do not have access.
Crap has changed, people. It has changed. She is cooking. Listen up.
Sure, insurance was an issue for a group of people and still remains an issue for some. But it doesn't answer all of our questions. And so just picking your specific argument and not recognizing that America is a very diverse country with a diverse set of needs. And what I'm telling you, the
How
data...
will RFK Jr. make it better?
RFK is already making it better by having a frank discussion about healthcare needs in this country and the level of chronic disease and the fact that our food has all of these additives, which we know now. I mean, I'm sure you support the fact that the gut microbiome is critically important. And we've been abusing our gut microbiome for decades with these food additives. And now we know that our gut microbiome, which none of us in the 1980s when we were trained really paid attention to.
Red 40 was banned.
People up to that issue of food,
Finally.
gut microbiome,
Well, let's talk
connections
about
with
food. I mean, really
Okay,
quickly,
well, hang on. Let me bring in. We've got two other guests. Let me bring in Brian Johnson. Brian, great to see you again. On a sense, we had a fascinating interview a year ago or so. This is all in your wheelhouse because you've gone on an extraordinary personal journey about health. First of all, what is your assessment of the state of America's health right now?
Yeah, I think the backdrop to all of this that's really important is that AI is advancing at a speed that is unfathomable to our current minds.